James J.C. When asked the question, what places have you had foundational educational experiences outside of the classroom? James said, living in San Francisco's Castro district and learning from my queer elders has been a definite education outside the classroom. Let's give it up. James J.C.
Love it. All right. Yeah, I mean, thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for coming out tonight. It means a lot to us writers. And so I am originally from Ohio. I have been living in San Francisco for about 20 years. And as a gay kid from Ohio, you think you know some things until you really move out here to San Francisco, and then you really learn some stuff about your San Francisco queer community. And so I'm just going to get right into it. And what would this have to do with education? Well, it's an education about our queer ancestry here in San Francisco. And because it is Lent, and it is almost Easter, this is called, if I could retitle this, I would, but I'll tell you that later. This is called Jesus Descends on Golden Gate Park. The children have chased down their final pastel eggs, and the church bells have exhausted their alleluias. He has risen indeed. Now the park is overflowing with men showing up in their Easter bonnets, Cadbury cream concoctions of hot glue and plastic flowers. Now come the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, saints of the night celebrating the holiest of days, the life everlasting. So their winged habits point to eternity, and their arms are outstretched to bless the crowds of heathens, the beautiful blasphemers. We are all waiting for the Savior to rise again. We are all waiting for the hunky Jesus contest to begin. One Jesus after another takes the stage, like the Son of Man standing before Pilate. But no one calls for a crucifixion, only a passion play, a cast of Christ stripped to a loincloth, a jockstrap, crowns of thorns, and lipstick stigmata. They are all here. The carpenter's son with his tool belt and CrossFit abs, Christ in a harness, leather chaps, nipple rings like little halos, Jesus in bunny ears, Jesus in lingerie, Jesus in fishnets, cross-dressing his way through Nazareth. This is a Catholic school expulsion, a Vatican heresy, and yet we have just begun. In comes Christ on roller skates, a cheerleading Christ shaking pom-poms doing the splits, rock star Jesus with a crucifix guitar, and suddenly clouds of smoke rise and the Christ of Hate Ashbury appears, barefooted, dreadlocked, water bubbling, and a glass bong. The Midwest grandmas clutch their rosaries, the Pentecostal bishops hold their Bibles high, and the televangelists speak in tongues. We are spit in God's eye. We are the Sodom and Gomorrah of the West. And soon we will turn to a pillar of salt. Soon we will pay a heavy price. Earth cracking open, bay turned to blood, frogs running from the sky, and disease and plague and darkness for 3 days. No one knows darkness like the men and women standing shoulder to shoulder in Golden Gate Park celebrating resurrection. These San Francisco elders, this Castro royalty, this order of nuns in corsets and leather, they were here for darkness when others ran the other way. Do not preach to them of plague, extinction, that Old Testament God flooding the world to start over again. More dead than a century of Sundays, Calvary Hill in a hospice bed, a decade of church doors locked tight. Priests sleeping through the 80s, ministers of God's wrath condemning the 90s. So who anointed the sick? Who were the disciples guiding soul from body? Who buried the children of God? Who shined the love of Christ in the shadows of mortality? It was the queens and the queers, the altar boy runaways and Catholic school refugees, the dying caring for the dying, adopted brothers and sisters descending into hell again and again, day after day, until light somehow found a way in. So this day of the Lord, this end of Lent, is all for them. The old God of vengeance is dead, the Christ of compassion, the Christ of understanding, the Christ of love is here today, reborn again in Golden Gate Park. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to start needing reading glasses soon because, whew. All right. Those were always in Dolores Park, and then they moved to Golden Gate Park, and I thought the Hunky Jesus contest is always going to be in Golden Gate Park. It's back to Dolores Park now. So this Easter, go to Dolores Park, and you can see the Hunky Jesus and the Sexy Mary contest. So there you go. All right. And this next poem, we'll call it education on linguistics and language. This is called They Still Say Faggot in San Francisco. It is a word I still hear when the Muni train pulls into Castro Station. Faggot. As in, this is where the faggots get off. This is where all the faggots live. It is just a word from the Old French, Middle English, faggot, literally meaning a bundle of sticks, branches bound together for a torch, a binding. It is only a word, and still I flinch as though I bit my tongue. I cringe because this is San Francisco, city in a catsuit purring at the moon, leather pups pawing their masters at Folsom. This is not Wyoming, rural Ohio. This is not my Catholic school or a Bible Belt country club. This is where rainbow flags umbrella the sky like a queer force field, a kaleidoscope bubble of security. And still, I look over my shoulder when walking home because a queen was beaten leaving the Eagle. Not a mugging, nothing taken. The only desire was to blacken eyes, break a tooth, stain the concrete with faggot blood. Faggot, a noun derived from the verb faggoting, the forging of steel in iron rods. It reminds me of 9 irons in the back of a pickup truck, the young men who drive into San Francisco on Pride weekend, hunting queers, leaving the parades, waiting to blare their horns, flash their headlights, scream faggot. Fagala, an old Yiddish word meaning little bird, makes me think of Feather Lynn, a radical fairy beaten until unconscious, a Sunday morning left to die on the street where church meets to boast. Fragile body, broken wings, and yet I know that spirit is rising. Faggot, dating back to the 16th century, as in the faggot and the stake, the burning of heretics. A word even I use when I find the ones I love, when I find my friends at the bar. Good morning, my beautiful faggots. This first drink is on me, because we are still a dying breed, and I am a pillar of fire. I am an extraordinary conflagration, a beautiful immolation. I am flaming.
God bless you!
Thank you, guys. I'll read one more, and this is totally, completely different. And I've never read it to people before. And since this is a very comfortable living room, I'm going to do it, all right? And we'll call this an education on art history. Everybody knows who Edward Hopper is, the Nighthawks painting, got it? All right, if you don't, Google it. But this is called Masterworks. Everyone wants to crawl onto the canvas of the Nighthawks. The dark, empty street where people are within reach on the other side of the glass in the warm glow of a cafe that serves breakfast all night and day. The sadness of life simplified with hash browns and buttered toast. They all want their loneliness in the company of strangers, the waiter who always returns again to warm their coffee cup, our burdens somehow easier to shoulder when rubbing shoulders with nameless faces across the counter, everyone with their own special sorrows, their very own malaise for the moment, a boredom they can share but call their own. I understand the beauty and the communal melancholy of cigarettes languishing in an ashtray of smoke. The city always fading into twilight or teetering on the edge of dusk. Life always colored in the brushstrokes of shadows and pale blues and grief. Everyone lonely, but never alone. I understand it. Believe me, I understand. But I'd rather wander into Hopper's rooms by the sea. Sunlight sliding down white walls, not a soul in sight to chase away the silence. Only the Cape Cod afternoon and a door that opens to nothing but ocean. Unending waves and sky that lead the eye away and past the frame to a new life of new masterworks, of your own creation. All we have to do is walk through and swim in hues of blue. All we have to do is go and go alone. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. That was some very relatable content. My first crush was Jesus. Long hair, check. Daddy issues, check. But anyways, check out James's book, The God of San Francisco and How Ghosts Travel. And of course, Literary Speak... Oh, you're just talking about. Are you the Literary Speakeasy guy?
I'm the host.
It's Push. Okay, so definitely check that out at Martuni's at 7 p.m. on the last Thursday of the month.